Hello there. I wasn't going to do a video this side of the bells, but I went to my dad's funeral yesterday, and I've come away, oh, so empty. Obviously, losing my dad's bad enough, but the actual service um, is a. There's a wee thing of my dad. That was one of the very few pictures that I had of him in his thing there. And a couple of pictures there of my dad who's older and me and my brother, and picture of his other family, and finally a picture of his wife, his second wife who lost last year, and my dad. And when we went to his wife's funeral in the Catholic Church, it was full of Catholic religious overtones, and they did the mass there. But at least the guy, the minister, the deacon who gave the most of the service, went up and told us about his wife Pat, you know, and I learnt things because I didn't know the woman at all. But you know, I didn't know what she did. Now at the top of this there, I don't know if you can see that, it says a celebration of the life of Ronnie. That's how my dad was known. So I was one of the pallbearers and my son behind me. And because first we had to go to the Catholic Church, we had to do that nerve wrangling, jangling bit where you have to pull out your dad's coffin, and tears were rolling down my eyes at this. You know, just the enormity that inside this box was my dad. And then we brought him in at waist height, and then as we got into the chapel, onto your shoulders. And there was a bit of imbalance because the guy at the back, my dad's step grandson, is a really tall guy, and everybody else was quite wee. Anyway, we did that, and then we sat down, and then there were 4 Roman Catholic guys there, plus the deacon who did something in the service called a homily. I might not be spelling that right, saying that right. The homily. So we had to add all these things from the gospel and the kissing of the book, putting it down, doing this and bowing it down to the Bible and put it on this thing and nodding again, and everybody's walking around at the stage with their hand like this. And we've had different things like prayers of intercession, commendation prayers, signs of farewell and committal, recessional hymn. It was the whole Catholic shebang. Even when we brought my dad in the coffin, 2 guys, a guy was flashing on the holy water. It sort of splashed on the coffin, and it came back up and hit me in the face, and the guy opposite me, who's the husband of my wife's, of my dad's stepdaughter, a Turkish guy. In fact, when the hearse turned up, he embraced me, and we both broke down, and he was just saying, "Oh, your dad was a great dad. Oh, what a great man, what a wonderful man, what a great dad he was to me in this." And I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, it was like we were talking about a different guy, because I never had any of that. And so we did all of this. So this guy, Deacon Anthony Nuttall, goes up to talk about my dad, and he starts off, this is to celebrate his life. And what we get is the date he was baptised in the parish Church of England, where funny enough I was baptised as well, and where my mum and dad had got married, that date. And then he named the full names of his mum and his dad who took him there. And then we fast forwarded to going to Lourdes. I think it's called Lourdes in France, every year. every year he went, because he was now a Roman Catholic. He said he went to so-and-so Catholic church before he came to this one. Then he went to there and he volunteered to help with the elderly people from on the bus journey every time they were a bit infirm and needed wheeling in the chairs and wheeling up for this miracle or the blessing or whatever people go to that place for. He did this every year. And then we went to, when he lost my mum last year, lost his wife last year, and then he was in hospital. He was very brave, and he got the sacrament, I think it's called, which gave him comfort shortly before he died. And that was it. And I thought, ooh, right, okay, because I was expecting to learn something. The thing is, the guy who's the deacon giving the talk is not a stranger to my father. He's my father's eldest stepson, who's known him more than me. You know, I had 12 years, 13 years of my dad, and he's had about 50 years of my dad. And there was nothing, and I just thought, I'm a bit baffled what happened there. And I just thought, well, we've still got to go up to Blacon in Chester where my dad's getting cremated, and he'll do the service there again, not to worry. So then we had to get my dad's coffin again, waist height, shoulders, it's like head, shoulders, knees and toes at this point. Stop, here we go, trying to get it back into the hearse, into the black thingies, slow journey up to my dad's final journey up to Blacon. And then, right, you're back in again. So for the third time, we had to then get hold of my dad's coffin, waist height, on our shoulders, and put him down on the plinth where the coffin stays during the service now at the so we had the entrance music, committal and recessional music, different bits. And I was expecting at this point, because I listened in Zoom from the same building when my cousin's wife, who had really bad dementia, finally died. My cousin's wife, mother I should say. And I watched the Zoom meeting, the Zoom meeting. I watched the funeral Zoom, and it was a humanist guy did it. So the person who just went round all the family, got all the facts and dates, talked about this person's life. We got all the, where they went to school, when they got married, how many children they had. Then sadly the marriage fell apart. Then lived with somebody else. Unfortunately, he sadly died. Then in somebody else. All different things that this person loved. And then her son went up, the brother of my cousin's wife, and interjected some humour and gave some humorous stories. I was laughing at some of the things that Keris's mum had done, even though I vaguely knew her, met her at a wedding and a barbecue, and that was it. So I'm expecting this to happen now. And lo and behold, at the Roman Catholic place, we had the incense, we had more holy water, the whole lot. Back up at this place, we started off. He said, we'll invite the family to put flowers on the coffin. So it was last time that I touched my dad's coffin. We put on a thistle from Scotland. And then he started doing more prayers. And we'd already had an abundance of prayers at the Catholic Church. And a song. And before I knew it, the curtain started to slowly go round my dad's coffin. And that was it. Anybody who didn't know my dad, and I barely knew the man, would have gone to that only knowing of his things he did as part of the Roman Catholic faith. Going to Lourdes. And my dad had had a long, rewarding life, dying at 88, and had done many things. As I said to before, as this picture shows, that's my dad, in his Merchant Navy gear, and had gone all around the world, not mentioned. He was an engineer at Bow Waters and Vauxhalls, not mentioned. He took me and Ian, my brother, fishing, not mentioned. He loved going to social clubs, not mentioned. Then when he left us and got a new family, he then went fly fishing. He ran marathons and half marathons, not mentioned. He was the grandfather to all of his second wife's children. Father first, then grandfather. Went to Canada, went to Turkey, not mentioned. Nothing mentioned about the man. It wasn't a celebration of his life. It was a religious service where, in everybody's view, was a coffin with my father in it. And that was it. And we got back in the car and drove with the family back to the social club, and I was absolutely raging. I just thought to myself, what happened? We'd even supplied to the family the name of all my dad from our side, the names of all his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, in order of who was oldest. He could have done or just said, and from this side of the family, there's no problem in referencing the fact that dad had one family and then another family. But to ignore it completely and just hone in on his religious belief was staggering. And I thought I'd seen the end of funerals like that after attending many Jehovah's Witnesses funerals, where it's all upon the belief, all upon the hope, read the Bible, so impersonal, nothing about the person that we've come to see here, that we all probably had stories of, nothing. And I was stunned. And we went then to the social club, the Whitby Social Club, used to be the Shell Club, the same place where we had his wife's wake. And then after we'd all eaten, we sat down and watched a slide collection and of a PowerPoint presentation. And when you saw the PowerPoint presentation, there were all the photos of my dad and his brother, who was behind me, is suffering bad with dementia, of them with lorries, my dad in the Merchant Navy, that picture there, my dad fly fishing, my dad doing marathons with his stepsons, which I didn't know who did the marathons with, but that's who he did the marathons with, not alone. He actually did them with his stepsons. It was all there. Holidays in Turkey, over in Canada, few pictures of me and my brother, 3 when we were younger, and then a couple when we were older, a couple of my son, none of my wife, loads of him and his wife, then that was it. And it was just the oddest thing. And when I saw this film show, you saw my dad really, really young. I think when he left us, he was in his mid-30s, which is really still comparatively young, that he lived till he was 88. And all of a sudden you realise how young he was when he left us, and how he was still young, doing other things. It's still like he'd started all over again. And at the end, is the daughter Margaret gave me a bag with some of my dad's mementos. I've got his fly fishing hat, his summer hat, 2 pairs of gloves, his little book that got stamped for every ship he ever went to, the times and the dates, the name of the ships, little picture of him, every time he donated blood, 2 mugs that people made showing me dad younger and dad older when he got retired. Don't even know when he retired. I don't even know what he was working at when he was retired, even though we were going down to see him, because he never really told us much about what he did. I just told him what we'd done. They never ever volunteered. I used to say, what happened? What have you done now with this and that? He never ever told us anything. Like we found out even like 15 years ago, in his early 70s, he was still going to Turkey because his stepdaughter married a guy from Turkey on holiday. It was just bizarre. It was like looking at a flashback at somebody's life with a sprinkling of me and my brother, of a man I didn't really know and a man I know even less of, because the minister who gave the talk, Anthony Nuttall, the eldest son, the eldest stepson, decided not to tell us. It couldn't have been too hard to ask his living sister and his living brother, when he was still with it, which school did he go to? When did he join them? Well, the Merchant Navy, you could tell. The book tells everything. Got his fingerprints on the book of when he joined the Merchant Navy and when he stopped in the Merchant Navy. It was all there. Even pictures of his ships. It did come up on the PowerPoint display, is the picture and the ship, but no. If you never went to the wake, and my cousin couldn't, and other people couldn't, you had no idea my dad was in the Merchant Navy. Not a thing. So now I've got these treasured mementos of my father, which joins all the medals he got for marathon and half marathons, all the t-shirts he's got, and I've got a big family painting and his books, which he gave me years ago because there was no room in the place he went to, and that's about it. So I just ended up coming away even more empty than I'm feeling before. Opportunity lost. Celebration of a life absolutely railroaded by a religious it wasn't in overtones. See you later. So I thought I'd live that with you. It's just when my family drove up in the car back, we were just shaking our heads in disbelief at what had gone down. Jesus Christ. If I pop my clogs tomorrow and I was still a witness and it just got railroaded by witnessy things, not mention the fact that love going to concerts, spoke to Paul McCartney once, that's at 2 Champions League finals, wrote songs. You can find them on Spotify, they're still there. Played football till he was 60, I could still play now, but I've been not invited to go back. All different things are done. He loved going on holiday, he loved going to Spain. He loved Lord of the Rings, went to New Zealand, all these things that you could say that I'd done. Brought up, his son here, married for, it'll be 40 years next year. All these things that you could talk about me. And imagine if they all just got pushed to the side to just talk about his hope, his love for Jehovah. And all, I'd say, God got more mentions yesterday than my dad. It was God, 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 God. A celebration of the life of God, and mentioning Ronnie Harrop a couple of times. So anyway, I just saw that leave you. I'm still raging with anger, and I feel utterly bereft of whatever that was supposed to be. It wasn't a celebration of a life. It was just a massive disappointment. I wish I hadn't have gone, but I did go because I went to pay my respects to my dad. But oh man, it's heartbreaking. Anyway, see you later.